The Patriotic Pole of Venezuela advanced with its electoral strategy. In this sense, the PSUV adjusts the electoral machinery 1/10 as part of the preparations for the presidential elections of July 28. In Palestine, occupation forces used U.S. floating dock to attack Nusayra refugee camp. And European Parliament elections finished where over 400 million citizens are called to vote. Hello, welcome to From the South. I am Irma Shelton from TeleSur Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The Great Patriotic Pole of Venezuela advances with its electoral strategy. In this sense, the PSUV adjusts the electoral machinery 1/10 as part of the preparations for the presidential elections of July 28. The first vice president of the leftist political force, Diosdado Cabello, through a publication in the social network X, summoned the militancy to participate on Sunday in what he called audit test review hot of the staging and practice of the perfect victory. Cabello explained that this initiative seeks to check, review, and verify this mechanism as guarantee the permanent contact with each candidate registered in the 1/10 system. Similarly, he specified that the simulation will also allow correcting errors where needed in order to increase the strength and give confidence to the Venezuelan people. The 1/10 electoral strategy consists in the creation of electoral support networks where the Chavista people commit themselves to guarantee the attendance of 10 voters to the electoral process. In this context, the Venezuelan government has denounced a censorship campaign in social networks to which the Chavista grassroots respond by creating more content. Let's review the Venezuelan president profile on social networks.
The Nicolai campaign in Venezuela is an initiative that seeks to twist the algorithm of social networks, which makes Nicolás Maduro's digital activity invisible. The government also denounces that they are not allowed to use advertising tools on equal terms.
President Nicolás Maduro, for example, in TikTok has 1.7 million followers at this moment. A post by President Nicolás Maduro could easily reach 90,000, 100,000 reproductions, and out of the sudden, it reaches 9,000 or 10,000. All the conditions are the same. He posts at the same time. The contents are practically identical to what he has been doing. What happened there?
It's part of the communicational dispute that his figure and the Bolivarian Revolution has faced, especially after the death of Comandante Chávez. Several discrediting campaigns weigh on Maduro, which are not consistent with reality. For Venezuelan philosopher and communicator Miguel Pérez Pirela, Maduro has not had a day of truth.
Se le han creado varios perfiles.
Several profiles have been created for him. The profile of the loser, even though he ended up winning the elections against Enrique Capriles Radosky. Then, the profile of the incompetent. Later, the profile of the dictator. And all this regardless of what he may do. Because in the case, for example, of the treatment he gave to the issue of COVID, to the pandemic, Venezuela was one of the most successful countries.
Spanish analyst Juan Carlos Monedero agrees with this view, stating that in the struggle for democracy, the elites have always treated the majorities as rabble or people with no criteria to lead. Maduro and the Bolivarian Revolution have been demonized and vilified.
Here suddenly, those majorities that were despised met with the leadership of a president who was also despised, and the two together met to vindicate the best of the Chavista and Bolivarian tradition in a very tough contest.
The Western media have played a particular role displaying prejudices and attacks against Maduro, and incidentally against Venezuela.
Son demasiados desafíos.
These are too many challenges to the powerful in a complicated moment where it was about continuing the task of a leader who marked a new stage as its President Chavez, which in other countries needs decades to be able to articulate that alternative, and which here has also been demonstrated with a special warmth as something feasible when the leader trusts the people, and the people end up trusting the leader.
In addition to communication attacks, Maduro has faced assassination attempts, conspiracies, attempted invasion and coup d'etat, sanctions and international isolation.
In Venezuela, on Saturday, the Bolivarian army dismantled an illegal mining camp south of the country as part of the Operation FOC for the protection of the Amazon region. The head of operations, Domingo Hernandez, said several illegal mining structures were found to be located in the protected areas. During the raid, they confiscated engines, water pumps, storage equipment, and fuel. The current administration is committed to endorsing environmental and friendly development and production methods. Recently, President Nicolás Maduro said that the country will become an example of ecological development and that, to that end, every necessary resources will be made available.
I am Captain Millán of the Sucre Rapid Combat Unit, adjoined to the Defense Planning and Development Vice Ministry. These soldiers are highly motivated for Operation Roraima 2024. We are proud to belong to our Bolivarian armed force and proud to defend our national sovereignty. Nothing will stop us.
On Friday, Ecuador's top appeals court rejected the habeas corpus requesting the immediate release of former Vice President Jorge Glass. The court also reversed the original ruling that qualified as illegal, illegitimate, and arbitrary Glass arrest at the Mexican embassy in Quito, but it rejected the police invasion of the Mexican embassy for not respecting the Ecuadorian protocol for raiding a foreign diplomatic delegation. Meanwhile, former Vice President Jorge Glass remains in La Roca maximum security prison in Guayaquil, pending to serve an 8-year prison sentence for bribery and illicit association in corruption charges. His arrest spurred a standing diplomatic conflict between Ecuador and Mexico. Mexico said it is willing to resume relations in the former Vice President handover, which is not an option for the administration of Daniel Noboa. Chile is holding primary elections to choose the mayors of 60 municipalities and the governors of 2 regions. Over 4.8 million registered voters are expected to take part in these primaries leading up to the general elections next October, where governors, regional councillors, mayors, and councilmen will be chosen in the country's 345 communes. The polling station opened on Sunday at 8 a.m. local time, and they should be closed at 6 p.m. local time. Authorities said most electoral tables were constituted at polling stations, but there had been 3 arrests of citizens who refused to participate as polling station officials. In Haiti, Gary Conille, who was recently elected as prime minister, was hospitalized Saturday in the capital, Port-au-Prince, a few days after arriving in the country, the Haitian government said. The Prime Minister's office said in a statement that Conille felt slightly well after a week of intense activities. No further details were provided except to say that he was stable and that he thanks to those who visited him and wished him well. Luis General Gil, a member of the Transitional Presidential Council, that elected Conille at the Caribbean country's leaders told the Associated Press that he was on his way to the hospital and had no further information. Conille was elected Prime Minister on May 28 after an intricate selection process. He faces an arduous task as Haiti's new leaders, including quelling widespread gang violence. Now let's take a short break, but remember, you can join us on TikTok at TeleSur English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Palestine, the Gaza Media Office denounced the use of a dock built by the United States used by the Israeli occupation forces to launch attack against the Al-Nusayra refugee camp, which left at least 210 civilians killed. The report stating that the Zionist forces directly targeted civilians, including children, in their aggression against the Said camp located in the center of the Gaza Strip. The document pointed out that these attacks were launched from the floating dock built by the United States off the Gaza coast, which was supposed to serve as a maritime corridor to bring humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. In the wake of this massacre, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres ordered Israel to stop the genocide in Gaza, while the Palestinian government has called for an urgent session of the Security Council. We stayed in Palestine, where organizations warn of an increase in abortion cases due to the siege perpetrated by the Israeli occupation in the Gaza Strip. Non-governmental organizations report that the number of pregnant women attending hospitals with serious hemorrhages and complications is increasing. In this regard, the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology of the Red of Al Saudi Hospital state that 40 to 50 babies are born every day, although there are only 35 beds. They also report that the cases that arrive with miscarriages are due to the malnutrition and anemia, since the bombing caused constant deployments. In the United States, Presidential Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has described as successful the operation in which Israel and paramilitary coalition killed nearly 300 civilians. In the midst of the worldwide repudiation of paramilitary Operation Max behind the facade of humanitarian aid, the presidential senior security advisor, after ratifying support to Tel Aviv efforts in the genocidal operation, praised the work of Israel's security services. In the last few hours, evidence has come to light regarding the use of humanitarian badges and human shields by U.S. paramilitary and Zionist troops in the Nusayra refugee camp, where they left a trail of bodies of women and children. In Israel, Minister Benny Gantz announced his resignation from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's emergency government on Sunday, withdrawing the only centrist power in the embattled leaders' far-right coalition. Netanyahu issued a brief statement calling on Gantz not to abandon the front, but his departure will not endanger the parliamentary majority of 64 seats in the 126 Knesset held by the ruling right-wing coalition. Gant's resignation had been expected ever since he represented the conservative prime minister with a June 8th deadline to come out with a clear date after a strategy for Gaza, where Israel has been pressing a devastating military offensive. His departure means that Netanyahu will lose the backing of the centrist bloc that has helped broaden support for the government.
We are leaving the unity government today with a heavy heart, but with a whole heart.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will address a joint meeting of the United States Congress on July 24, according to the top U.S. lawmakers. The confirmation of the date late on Thursday came a week after Netanyahu was formally invited to speak before U.S. politicians in the latest show of support by the longtime ally despite mounting political divisions over Israel's military assault on Gaza. Netanyahu's appearance before an increasingly divided Congress is sure to be controversial and met with plenty of protests both inside the Capitol from lawmakers and outside by pro-Palestinian protesters. Democratic lawmakers most critical of Netanyahu's strategy are not expected to attend the speech. In Iran, the Ministry of the Interior of the Islamic Republic published the names of the 6 candidates who have obtained the eligibility to run in the presidential election scheduled for June 28. The Ministry of Interior of the Islamic Republic of Iran informed the names of the 6 candidates who have been granted eligibility to run in the presidential elections called for June 28 in connection with the physical disappearance of President Ibrahim Raisi. The campaign will likely include live televised debates of the candidates on Iran's state broadcaster. They will also advertise on billboards and offer speeches to back up their bids. Masoud Pezeshkian Mostafa, Pur Hamadi, Said Jalili, Ali Rekia Sakani, Amir Hossein Kasigi Kasheni, and Mohammed Baker Khalifa make up the list approved by the Guardian Council. We continue with more news. Welcome back to From the House. On Sunday, the European Parliament elections are complete. More than 400 million citizens in the Union are summoned to a process that began on June the 6th. The day will result in the election of 720 deputies whose names will be known on Monday. The general vote count ends at midnight, moments before Italy closes the last polling station. The European Parliament, a European Union institution marked by serious corruption scandals, with a strong presence of the extreme right, could take a dangerous turn towards the direction today when issues that will determine the future of more than 450 million people, as well as migration, security, and climate change, are being discussed. In India, Narendra Modi has been sworn in at the presidential palace for his first consecutive terms as the country's prime minister. The inauguration ceremony was attended by over 8,000 people. The ceremony includes the swearing-in of all 72 ministers of the new cabinet. The ceremony was attended by leaders and heads of states from neighboring countries like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and Nepal as part of the government's policies on neighborhood affairs. Modi took office in 2024 and has been re-elected twice, so he has been at the helm with a parliamentary majority for the past 10 years, but after the last elections, he had to negotiate with other parties to form India's new government. Higher than average ocean temperatures are about to make the current global coral bleaching phenomena the worst in history. In this regard, scientists from Australia and Florida highlight the plight of the world's coral reef.
Coral reefs around the world are experiencing global bleaching for the fourth time, a result of warming ocean waters amid human-caused climate change, according to scientists. In order for bleaching to be declared on a global scale, significant bleaching had to be documented within each of the major ocean basins, including the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, in both the northern and southern hemispheres.
The situation right now is pretty dire. We are in the 11th hour in many places, with mass coral bleaching all over the entire world. We're right now in the fourth global mass bleaching event. So make no mistake about it, situation is grim. But I have not lost all hope. There are still things that we can do to turn this around.
Bleaching happens when stressed coral expel the algae that are their food source and give them their color. If the bleaching is severe and long-lasting, the coral can die. In the world's largest coral reef ecosystem, Australia's Great Barrier Reef, bleaching affected 90% of the coral assessed in 2022. In March 2024, Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority announced a mass coral bleaching event following aerial surveys.
The reality for what's happening in the Great Barrier Reef, unfortunately, isn't a surprise, and it's a consequence of rising global temperatures. And we're very certain of that, partly because of the science, but also because of what we've seen across the whole of the last 12 months.
The world is experiencing the second global bleaching event in the last 10 years. The last one ended in May 2017. Brought on by a powerful El Niño climate pattern that heated the world's oceans, it lasted 3 years and was determined to be worse than the prior two bleaching events in 2010 and 1998. In this sense, also the Florida coral reef, the third largest, experienced significant bleaching last year. In mid-July 2023, water surface temperatures averaged about 33 degrees Celsius in the Atlantic off the lower Florida Keys, well above the average of 29.5 degrees Celsius, according to National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reports. The hot water resulted in nearly 100% bleaching along portions of the reef. Scientific reports have long said loss of coral is one of the big tipping points of future warming as the world nears 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming since pre-industrial times. That's a limit that countries agreed to try to hold to in the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement.
Oceans are incredibly important for humanity, for all the things they provide, and they deserve our attention to look after them. And climate change is a substantial threat to all of those systems. So it's beholden upon all of us to take action on climate, because it gives the planet the best possible future, and hence all of us.
Have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSur English, I am Irma Shelton. Thank you for watching.